Today's episode hits home for a lot of us. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the constant juggling act of work, business, parenting, marriage, this conversation is for you. I sat down with Russell Harvey, the resilience coach, to talk about how we can stop just surviving and actually start thriving, even in the chaos. We talk about balancing ambition with presence, why multitasking is a myth, and how to recognize when you're coping versus thriving, and what to do about it. This isn't fluff. This is one of those conversations that'll have you thinking differently by the time it ends. So whether you're listening on the commute, in the gym, or catching a breath between responsibilities, pause with us for the next hour and let's dive in. Here we go.
Don't move. Keep it locked. You already know. You're listening to the Fit Fatherhood Podcast. And we're having conversations with dope dads covering the 4 pillars of fatherhood. We call it the Fit Fatherhood Formula. Faith, family, finance, and fitness. That's right. These dads are setting the pace in business and fatherhood. This show isn't only about the outside success. We're getting down to who you are. Gentlemen, it's time to get fit. And now, let's get into the show.
All right. Welcome back to the Fit Fatherhood Podcast, a podcast for fathers by fathers, where we talk about the 4 pillars of fatherhood, which are faith, family, finance, and fitness. And we're going to lean into kind of both family and finance here, because I know you guys, and I hear it all the time. You guys message me. We're talking about being overwhelmed with work, or trying to figure out how to balance work and life. And as I've said before, I don't know if you balance the two, but I have a guest today that can probably help us work through some of that. And when I say probably, I mean definitely. My guest today is Russell Harvey. Russell is the resilience coach. Russell, how you doing today, brother?
I am really good. Thank you, Rod. Absolutely. My intention is to support people with overwhelm. That's where I spend the vast majority of my time, talking about this word optimism and hope. And okay, so how do we do something around the overwhelm piece? So I'm glad on the introduction, you got it right. It is the resilience coach, not any old resilience coach, Rod. It's the resilience coach. So I shall try my best to share as much, pearls of wisdom as I can.
Absolutely. Now, I know you guys are listening. You can pick up on the accent. Russell, where you at today?
Yeah, so I am in Leeds in the north of England in a county called West Yorkshire. But if anybody's really into accents, this is not a proper Yorkshire accent. I've been in here for 30 years. I keep asking the locals about, can I be an honorary Yorkshireman? And they sort of go, not yet. And I go, it's 30 years. So originally I'm from just north of the London area is where I was born and brought up.
Okay. All right. What's the difference between the two accents? Is it like a slower drawl, or what would you say?
Yeah, so it's south and north. So I don't. There must be a website of just listen to a Yorkshire accent, and it's sometimes it might come out throughout this because I've been here for 30 years, and a lot of time people say to me, "Where are you from? Your accent goes all over the place." That's if we're in the UK, essentially. They go, I don't know, all over.
Yeah. It's funny how that happens because I'm from Northern California, but I went to college in Michigan, and when I came back from school, like completely, because I was there for 5 years. When I came back from school, people are like, "Well, why do you talk like that?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I've just been around people, and I just picked up some of the stuff they say, and some of the like the accent or some of the words that they say, and even like so in the West Coast in California, we say soda." In the Midwest and in the East, they say pop, right? And so,
okay.
And so I every once in a while it'll come out because when you get to talking to people, you talk the way that they talk so they understand. And every once in a while I'll say pop, and people will be like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?"
Yes. And the Yorkshire accent is an awful lot about the reduction of letters in sentences. So if you say out, which is OWT, that means nothing, essentially, or anything, and nout is nothing. So it's like,
wow,
it's the shortening of things. You have to come over and spend some time here, and then listen to people in the pub, and you start to go, right, I got about 1% of that. What was the rest of it? What did that mean?
Yeah, it's interesting how language works. It's so many dialects, and it's all English, but there's different ways to convey your message and different ways people have adjusted it. But I like having these conversations because when we're talking to people from all over the world on the podcast, getting to get a feel for different places through the language and through the personalities of the people that are from there is an awesome experience to have. So I love it.
Yes, travel broadens the mind, and that includes a conversation with somebody on the other side of the world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's fantastic.
All right, so let's talk about the resilience coach, right? Not any old resilience coach, the with a capital T resilience coach. What does that mean, and what are you coach? Well, obviously resilience, but how are you coaching resilience?
Yeah, so I'm a coach and a facilitator. So the coaching part is one-to-one with leaders, essentially, and business owners. It's not a sales pitch, but ideal client is somebody who's got the job title of head of or director of.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what the rest of it is or what industry it's in. And it's the individual that might be thinking or feeling, this is just like, I've had enough. This is harder than it needs to be. Or, I've got too many problems, or I've got this element of overwhelm. And then we utilize this word resilience to actually understand what it means to them on an individual level, essentially, because resilience is about the human condition. So there's a number of ways in which any human being could build their resilience. Which ones each individual chooses to go at first, will depend on their circumstances. So I work with leaders literally just to ask the question of, what does being a resilient leader mean to you? We discover it for them and explore it and then get some goals out of it. How to lead a resilient team, and then, how to be a resilient parent, essentially, would be part of it. And then a facilitator point of view, it's with teams and organizations to literally go, okay, what does it mean to be a resilient team? What does it mean to be a resilient organization? And the organizational piece is very much on the human side rather than, facing into cyber attacks. When you talk about business resilience, it's normally about the processes and business continuity management. I understand that, but I often go into organizations and go, so resilient people equals resilient organizations, ? Discuss, talk to me. What's our opinion about it? And fingers crossed, they understand that it is. And the business will be 10 years old in July. And where it all came from, my whole career in learning and development and leadership development, but my last permanent role was at an organisation called the Co-op in Manchester, also in the north of England. And not long after I joined it, about 15 years ago, it got itself into a real pickle financially, a whole host of reasons. And literally every one of my internal clients, which was part of the leadership team, would come to with their head in their hands and going, what on earth do we do? And I said, there's this word resilience, and there's an acronym of VUCA, which I can explain if we need to, which is about why we're overwhelmed. And I just went, all of our answers are in there, essentially. And that's how, when I left the Co-op, that's when the resilience coach was born, essentially, because I've just been spending all my time talking about what does it mean to lead yourself and others well in a full-on mad bonkers crazy world.
Okay. Well, this is perfect. This is why you're a perfect guest for this podcast, because most of us that are listening, myself included, consider ourselves to be the head of the household. We are, and I can speak for myself. I won't speak for everybody else because I know everybody else's life is great, judging by their Instagram posts and social media profiles.
Yes, absolutely.
But I wear like 100 hats. Like I got a bunch of different jobs and businesses and things that I do. While trying to be present and available as a husband and as a father and forward thinking and present and all these things, right? I deal with some overwhelm, right? Like especially in the last few weeks as my business is growing and kind of growing without me expecting it. Like it wasn't something I planned. It was something that kind of fell into my lap. And that, has kind of thrown me for a loop. I am feeling like, man, I got too much on my plate. Right. And which is weird to say when the goal was to eat. Right. When you get too much on your plate, all of a sudden you're overwhelmed. And I'm feeling the effects of it.
Is it all right jump in and just ask
Please,
you a
please do.
question there? Because I'm just really interested in your specific answer about what do you mean by overwhelm. So you've started to answer it, but
Hmm.
it's a word that's used an awful lot. So how do you know when you're overwhelmed, Rod? What's going on for you?
That is a great question, and I love where this is going already. So for me, right, I typically have what at least a feeling of I've got everything under control, right? Like I know
Okay.
exactly, not that I know exactly what's going to happen, but I have a good idea of if I do this, then I'll get that, or like I'm kind of understanding of inputs and outputs. And then what has happened with I'll explain what's so my gym, which I didn't intend on doing at all anyway, but I'm in it. I'm a year and a half into it already. Is one location, looking to probably be four locations by the end of the year. It'll be four locations. It'll probably
Okay.
be two or three by the end of the summer. This again was something that I wasn't planning, right? So now understanding what it took to get the first location to where it is, I know what it's going to take to get the next two to three locations where they're supposed to be, and I know the amount of work that goes into it with all the other stuff I already have, right? And so I'm aware like of what the work that I need to put into building the business, but I don't know if that input that I'm putting in there is going to affect or how it's going to affect things going on with my family. And so I would say I'm juggling these
Okay.
things, right? And and it's not like I'm juggling three balls or like I'm juggling scarves. I'm juggling like a knife and a bowling pin and like I'm like I've got a bunch of different things that I'm juggling at the same time.
So
And
does
any
does the overwhelm piece then come in around? So you're juggling. So do
Mhm.
you feel in command when you're juggling, or is it the case of actually, if I added one more thing or two more things in, so when would it tip into the overwhelm? Is what I'm really curious about.
So using the juggling analogy, right? And I said I've got a ball, I've got a bowling pin, I've got a knife. There's anxiety around if I catch the knife the wrong way, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
if I lean into one of these things a little bit more than the other to get it where, because like I've really got to focus on the knife, because if I catch the wrong side of the knife, I'm not juggling anything else.
Okay.
Um, and so it's like there's more pressure, I guess, in trying to keep all of these things in the air, right?
Yeah.
And one of them being a newer thing, kind of more unexpected, is adding more anxiety or more pressure to the mix.
So there's loads of things that are firing off from me here. So one of the things that hopefully is useful for everybody sort of watching and listening now. So I define resilience as springing forward with learning.
Okay.
So it's an actionable thing. I'm not a fan of the term bounce back. Okay.
Okay.
Because we face into life's challenges. And if we say to ourselves, right, I'll now bounce back, it's sort of a subconscious instruction to go back to how you were before. And
Mm.
you can't go back. So that's why I'm on a one person mission. Please come with me to redefine resilience as springing forward with learning. So it literally in everything we're doing, you've got to find the opportunity to do some form of pause. Now, pause is listening to a podcast.
Mm.
Pause is talking to a friend. Pause is going for a run. Pause is all sorts of different things. Pause is reading a book. But in your reflections, what are you learning? So that's something that just want to get out there to start with. And then the other thing around juggling is to actually say to everybody, there's no such thing as multitasking.
Hmm.
It's a myth. Yes, we can do multiple activities at the same time. However, we kid ourselves that we're doing all of these activities equally well.
Hmm.
So, linked to some of the stuff that I do, we talk about this thing called attention control and situational awareness. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So, attention control is actually, as I'm juggling, I need to absolutely 100% focus on one thing and then focus on the other thing. But I've got an overall awareness that actually these are the things that are bubbling around, and I have got clarity on the thing that I need to focus on next.
Mm.
So, attention control is really understanding that there's no such thing as multitasking, as in the false belief that we can do multiple tasks equally well. We can't.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to make choices about what you're going to focus on and give all your attention to it, but with practice, because it uses different parts of your actual brain in terms of the science around it. Of practice, like I'm aware that there's something just bubbling on over here. So in parenthood, you've got family environment and children of different ages. It's like I'm going to focus my attention on baking these cookies with the kids, or doing this piece of homework, or talking to my partner about, but I've got some situational awareness that things have got a little bit quiet upstairs, so that's just where I'm going to go next, because I think there's something brewing there that I need to focus my attention on.
Gotcha. Yeah, you know what, I try to, as much as I can, I talk about this all the time. It's like my schedule or my calendar, I try to block things and schedule as much as possible. And the reason I do that is so that everything has its place, so that I don't like spend time trying to do multiple things at once, right? Like right now, this is on my schedule and this is the only thing that matters, right? I hear my phone buzzing. I know people are trying to get in touch with me. I'm sure emails are coming in, but for this time, this is the thing that matters. And I'm going to commit myself 100% to it. I think what's happening for me is I already have my schedule laid out. Now these other things are like trying to fit their way in, like they're beating up against the schedule. And I'm like, and there's a feeling of like, I can't let this linger too long without taking care of it. Or one of the things that is on my schedule now is demanding a little bit more of my attention for whatever reason, right? And it's not fitting nicely into its block. You know what I mean? It's trying to bleed over, or even during that time, maybe something happened that requires more of my physical and mental energy than maybe I had planned for, right? And so when I get to the next thing, it's just piling on top. Does that make sense?
It does. And, when we talk about this, just in general life, and the factual answers from myself at this moment in time is where this helps. So one of the dimensions of being resilient is having a purpose. So, and when you've really understood what your purpose is, then that really supports decision making and choices. So the resilient individual makes much better decisions based upon a whole host of factors, but one of them being about their purpose. Now, I appreciate, you ask a father, a parent, what's your purpose? It's going to be, to be the best version of myself for my kids, or to love my children, or to provide. I get that. However, it's slightly different to that. So my particular purpose is to positively affect 100,000 people by the year 2025. Right now, I'm up to 79,212-ish. So I'm hoping that as a result of this, I'll add some more to the list.
Yes.
Now, so a purpose, and for marketing purposes, there are some statistics and some numbers in there, Really, my purpose is literally, I want to spread the word of resilience. And as a consequence of that, I want to make the world a better place. As a consequence of that, I want to support loads of different individuals to make better decisions about the lives that they've got. And I want to be a resilience role model. So, the positive effect, I have to break that down. As a consequence of that, I have to be in a good place. I have to look after myself to be able to achieve that. And then I have to look at everything that's in my life and going, how much of what's in my life is supporting me to meet my purpose, and which of it isn't. And now I need to make some decisions and choices about how do I do some more of the things that enable me to support my purpose, and do fewer of the things that don't, or say no to them, or make better decisions about actually. So it's very much purpose then goes into, and then you then come up with a set of goals to achieve your purpose. And as a consequence of that, leaders, individuals, humans spend less time talking about time. Because there's not anything we can do about, so there's not enough hours in the day. And you go, no, there aren't, So, okay. So we have to make some real clear choices about where we focus our attention, and the decisions we make based upon our purpose. So it's not easy. It's difficult. And so I start asking rooms of people, individuals, what's your purpose? And then from a leadership point of view, I go, but what's your leadership purpose? Now, it's not about having multiple ones. It's just I ask those few questions, and then I could add into that, what's your parenting or your fatherhood purpose? And then there'll be some connectivity amongst the three. So you can go, actually, no, I've got one singular purpose, and it's this. And this is my guiding light. And this, supports me through life, actually feel good.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is it possible for someone to have multiple purposes? But I think you kind of answered it. It's like, there are things that you want from your career, and there's things that you kind of want to steer towards in the career. There are things that you want in your parenting. There's things you want to steer towards in your parenting, but there's connecting points, right? And then maybe those points draw into your actual purpose.
Yeah, they will do. So it's the fact that, you'll have some goals that will enable you to achieve. And that's when you get into the, the specific, measurable, achievable, realistic time bound, but it's the overarching purpose. It's a bit more, without getting sad. It's like, what do you want people to say about you, when you were no longer here, essentially? What is it that you want? What do you want, when you leave a room? There we go. When you leave a room. And, what do you want people's, 3 words or feelings or values to describe you, and actually it's about your humanity, essentially.
Got you. Now, if it kind of starts with purpose, and I'm a guy that's feeling overwhelmed, how do I decide, or how do I determine what my purpose is? I know you say you figure out what you want people to say about you, but then how does that turn into purpose, I guess?
So then you could think about people that are listening, watching now, is literally just to write down what are the 3 things that you want people to say to describe you, about you. What the 3 things do you want to be remembered for, and then it's actually, so what are the suite of behaviors that you need to do to achieve that outcome, those answers, how do you need to be? And as a result of that, while you get out of bed each day, that's your purpose. That will start emerging. That will start coming to you. And not many people think about this. And it is a little bit like peeling an onion. And so it's quite often it's not the place to start, sometimes. So there's 7 aspects to building your resilience, and purpose is one of them. So sometimes people start there, and sometimes people finish there. And sometimes actually, do you know what? I've been thinking about some of the other 6, and my purpose has just come to me,
Gotcha.
And so, so if you're feeling overwhelmed, some people might find a conversation around their purpose helps them, and others might go, do you know what? No, that's adding to my overwhelm. So my intention when I talk about resilience is not to add to people's overwhelm, and it's not to add to their mental to-do list. I don't want people to go away from their time when they're going, right, prior to seeing Russell, I was full, had this to-do list. He's now shared with me all these ways I'd build my resilience, and I've now fallen over because I've now literally, you've got to make some decisions to go, I'm going to do that to build my resilience. And I go, right. So it has to replace something. So you're going to stop doing something as a consequence.
Right. So like saying yes to something is saying no to something else.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It is.
Oh, if purpose isn't where I start, and then maybe I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't have all 7 or the other 6. What are the other 6?
They're in my head, Rog. Don't you worry. They're in my head. So if you imagine a wheel, so the heart of resilience is our attitude.
Okay.
Which is, so to build on that a smidgen, it's our settled way of thinking and feeling about life, and it's about our beliefs. Okay, our beliefs about us and about others and about society and about life. Okay, is our settled way, and then that goes into our mindset. So it's thinking about, if you imagine a scale, on one side of the scale, I'm being extreme now, one side of the scale, somebody might mindset and attitude might be, well, just life just happens to me and there's nothing I can do about it. Or they might say to themselves, you know what, on the other side of the scale, I am complete master mistress of my own destiny, and absolutely everything that happens in my life is only down to me, and it's something in between. Okay. Essentially is what it is. And the bit that really fascinates me around the attitude thing is to make sure that we add in the definition of beliefs. So a belief is something that we behold to be true without basis in fact.
Okay.
So I believe X, and then you've got to go, oh, right. Right. How true is that? What's that based in? So our beliefs go into our attitude. So if we sort of, have a day at the office of like, well, everybody, nobody's listened to me today, so I don't think there's any point in being here. So I believe that I'm a waste of space.
Okay.
And you immediately would go, well, hang on a minute, let's just, challenge that. So attitude is the heart of resilience. Then it's your purpose. Then it's this word confidence, which is our balance of positive and negative thoughts. And there's a whole variety of ways in which you can build our confidence. Then there's this lovely word of adaptability, which is openness to change. And there's some good research that shows that actually when an individual chooses to spend a third of their time honing their adaptability skills, openness to change, then they get themselves into a place called thrive. Rather than surviving and coping, they're thriving because they engage with, they're open and curious around their adaptability. And then the other additional bit around adaptability is the fact that openness to change doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do it. So agile means that you make quick decisions to do the change. Then there's support network. So cultivate the best support network that you can, that really supports you and nurtures you and, doesn't just blow smoke up your backside, Rod. They tell you some home truths, and you accept them. Yeah. The best support network you can. Then there's our internal storytelling, our self-talk, how we are talking to ourselves about the world. And then there's this word energy, which is very much about a strengths-based approach. So in the UK, you use a psychometric called Strength Scope, and I think in the US, you're familiar with Strengths Finder. So this is actually what your natural energizers are. So the psychometric that I use, there's 24 of them, and you do your significant 7. They are things like compassion, leading, critical thinking, common sense, emotional control, and a load of others. And you understand what your natural strengths are. And when you spend time harnessing your natural strengths, then you build natural confidence and natural resilience. So I sit down with each client, we do their strength scope, and we look at their wheel, and I go, right, which one's already in a good place, or the best out of the 7? Let's just make that even better. Start with a good, and then let's start to play around with these different areas of the wheel which are relevant to you. And I just ask the client, where would you like to start? Which one do you want to go at? And that's how you build your resilience. When you engage with your resilience wheel on a weekly, monthly basis that you find interesting and enjoyable, you will be springing forward with learning and persistently and permanently building and growing your resilience.
Okay. All right. I like that. So it's kind of based on the individual when they come to you. It's kind of like you take a look at where they're at, and then, okay, these are, your strengths. It's like almost like a SWOT analysis, right? Your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. Here's where you obviously came to me looking to build this, but there's also this thing, right? We need to work on that a little bit, that you probably didn't notice because you're overcompensating somewhere else or trying to kind of lean into something else. Okay. All right. So we're working together. I'm building my resilience. How often are you working with people, or do you give them homework, or how is that working?
Yeah. So it can vary. So ideal client wise is there'll be a period of time. It can be like anywhere between 6 months to a year.
Okay.
And I just say to the client, you've got monthly access to me.
Gotcha.
And we contract, they pay a fee. And if any particular month I go, you've been calling me every day, that's too much. It's like, we've got a meeting booked in, and you've got some homework. You're going to play around with your resilience wheel or your leadership purpose or something, or there's some actions that you're going to go and do, but we can have check-ins. But it normally equates to some sort of monthly conversation, either virtually or face-to-face, or we go for a walk. So I, I coach globally, because of, technology. So face to face and online, it can happen equally as well. And so, yeah, they get monthly access essentially.
Okay. Okay, cool. I want to go back a little bit because it's something that you
Yes.
said that I want to kind of maybe get some clarity on. And it's for myself personally. I'm cheating, guys. I'm getting some free help.
There you go.
How do I know the difference between when I'm surviving and when I'm thriving? And the reason I say that is sometimes in survival mode, I'm getting stuff done. Like stuff is happening. It's maybe not happening as easily as I would like, but I'm getting the job done. Things are not falling apart, right? How would I know when things are thriving versus surviving if I'm still getting it done, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm tired and I'm mentally exhausted, but things are getting done. Maybe this is just the way things are supposed to be. Is that survival or is that thriving? You know what I mean? All right. Before we jump back into the conversation, I want to share something special with you from our brother, Pastor Aaron of the Daily Drip Podcast. Every week, he'll be sharing a short message to help us strengthen our faith, challenge our perspective, and walk this fatherhood journey with more purpose and spiritual awareness. So take a minute, lean in, and let this one sit in your spirit. Here's Pastor Aaron.
Think about, how often do you say this phrase? If Jesus can say it, we should say it. I can do nothing on my own. Wait, what? Wait, Jesus says that? Wait a minute. And see, living a life of faith is having that declaration, because I depend on the one who empowers me to do it. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That doesn't mean that you'll always win, but I can win and lose with a great attitude. Because Paul was saying I could be rich and poor, I could be free, I could be in prison. So when Jesus is saying I could do nothing on my own, now let's think about this very practically. Can you tie your shoes on your own? Yes, a lot of us can. But things of significance, things that are worthy of glory, things that are significant enough for a witness to bring attention to you, no. It is the power and the glory of God and a faith dependent on him that allows us to do that. It doesn't take as much faith to be intellectual and talk about concepts about Jesus. But then when Jesus is right in front of us and saying, here are some things I want you to change in your mindset, in your decisions, that requires the life of faith. And that's sometimes why we try to have our own will, because we want our own glory. But if we want God's will, then we seek God's glory. Now, what's glory? When the witness points attention to ourselves or points attention to God.
Man, that was good. Appreciate you, Pastor Aaron. All right, let's get back into the conversation. We're just getting started.
So there's 3 words here which sort of answers your question. So there's survival, coping, and thriving. Okay, so survival is like actually you're hanging on by your fingernails. You're on the cliff edge. You're about to fall. That's surviving.
Okay.
Coping is a broad spectrum. Okay, so most people are in the coping space. When you ask another human being, "How are you?" they'll go, "I'm okay. I'm fine." Or, culturally in the States, you all go, "I'm great." Okay. Yeah. So coping is some version of US, "I'm great." The rest of the world, "I'm fine. I'm okay." But that could be, actually, "I'm okay." And I'm okay. Some people might say, "I'm okay." And do you know what? I think I'm just about to go into surviving. I think I'm just about to go off the cliff edge. And then you might be okay, and you're just about to tip into thriving. So thriving is that there's a lot of stuff that's going on around you, and you can genuinely say to yourself, "Yeah, I'm really good. It's all a bit crazy. It's all mad bonkers. There's loads of things going around, but I'm in a good place. I've got clarity and great feeling about actually what I'm here to do, how I'm going to go about it, and how I feel and think about all of these other things that are out of my control and out of, my command." That's thriving. To be able to genuinely say, "Yeah, I'm really good."
Okay.
So coping is where most people are, and the resilient individual spends more time in thriving than coping.
Okay. Yeah, because I hadn't heard coping being like the bridge between the two. So it's like you're surviving or you're thriving, and in some ways, like I might be thriving in my business, but I'm just surviving at home, or vice versa, right? And people are kind of, how do I thrive everywhere, right? Or how do I make sure that I'm doing it all the way that it needs to be done in both places? I think it's what ultimately everyone wants to get to, a place where they're thriving, right? And the things that need to get done are getting done at a high level. But I think when we realize we're surviving in one space or another, we try to work on that, and we leave the other part alone, and then that shifts,
So this is, I can't, blessed, I was on a networking event the other day, and I can't remember the individual's name, but this is not, I'm stealing this from somebody else. So we often talk about, and I've studied loads, and I'm going to correct myself, about work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's a bit of a misnomer,
Mm-hmm.
because it's more than likely to be the case that, some aspects of your life are going really well and others aren't. It's likely to be like that. Now, you can get it to a place where all aspects of your life are in a good place, which is about engaging on a personal level with your resilience, gives you a best chance to get there. However, so many things are outside of your control that it's more about actually, how do you get a harmonious relationship between work and life? And at other times, work is going to take precedence, and at times life is going to take precedence. But actually, you're understanding that actually there's some give and take, and there's some harmony within there.
Yeah. I that's one of the things that I lean into as well, is that work-life harmony is more of a myth than anything else. Or sorry, not harmony, work-life balance.
Balance.
What you want more of is harmony, and I like to say, it's like a barbershop quartet, or an orchestra, or something musical, right? Because each instrument plays its part. Each one of them is really important, but at some point, the guy who's singing with the baritone, with the bass, he's just kind of playing the background, right? He's not the lead singer. And then there's a time, though, where he gets to step into the front, and he gets the mic, and he's lead. But then he slips back in, and he's still a part of the harmony. Like, he's still, because without him, or if he's off key, it throws everything off, right? And so there's this kind of blend or smoothness of it that you're trying to accomplish, versus balancing the two. And then I say too, is it's really hard to balance two things that aren't equal.
Yeah.
Right. Like my time with my family, to me, is more important than any time I'm going to spend at work. So when I try to balance the two, and it's like, I got to work 8 hours, so I got to spend 8 hours with that's not how it works. Like, it is very hard to do that. But maybe 2 hours of really quality time with my family might be worth 16 hours of work, but it's just a matter of trying to figure out how that works for you, and maybe getting some clarity on where your value is placed, like, and I think that using that kind of that harmony idea, certain songs lean towards certain types of singers. It doesn't mean that everybody in the group is not important, but this song is for him or her, and she's going to sing it the way she sings it, and we're all supporting cast.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm just being mischievous. So my favorite music artist of all time is David Bowie.
Okay.
He was the soundtrack of my life. So I'm just putting out there, literally, that there'll always be a David Bowie track that you can come to, that will support you at some point that you need at the moment in your life. He's had such a broad spectrum of music that he's put out there that, if anybody's lost, find a David Bowie track. There'll be one.
One to get you back on track, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the harmony piece, engaging with your resilience wheel is going to enable you to find your path through all of this, essentially, because it'll be somewhere out of those 7 is what you might need to play around with. You might be the case of actually you're overwhelmed, more than likely because you're not managing to harness your strengths, these natural energizers that we have inside ourselves. So it's needs to be an opportunity that could be, that's where you need to spend some time. Actually, I've realized that where I am spending my time, actually the energy flow around that is, has been sucked out of me because I'm spending too much time doing the things that I don't naturally enjoy. So that could be part of it. As ever, you go to your underlying attitude, because it could be your mindset and your beliefs. And, so any aspect of the wheel at any time, you could look at to support you to get this harmony.
Gotcha. So if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, would your immediate suggestion be to kind of connect back to the things that are your strengths?
Yes.
Or like the things that they, like you said, give you energy. So if, I don't know, maybe I'm trying to think of maybe like, so my purpose, right? My reason why is one of the things that gives me energy. Like for me, it's like my family, right? My daughters, my wife are the reason why I do the things that I don't like to do, but I do them with a smile on my face, or I do them with a certain amount of effort and energy because they deserve it. Getting overwhelmed with work, and then I just, okay, well, listen, the work is going to be work, but let me lean into this thing that gives me joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, it's finding the way. So it's really difficult when people are overwhelmed. One of the real challenges as a leadership coach is that, you see an awful lot of people that are overwhelmed and they're struggling. And I'm going, so, you need a coach? Come and have a chat, and getting a human being in that moment to have a chat can be really difficult because they're overwhelmed. They're on the hamster wheel. We keep talking about this. They're on it. So, for everybody listening now, it's like, how self-aware are you when you're on the hamster wheel? How good are you at getting off the hamster wheel?
Yeah.
What if we completely stopped talking about hamster wheels altogether, and completely reframed it into something else? That's it. So when somebody's overwhelmed, it is about the self-awareness. So this is why I go back to springing forward with learning is an actionable doing thing. So resilient individuals get into the habit of role modeling the behaviors that underpinning that decision, that definition, which are, on a regular basis, you pause. I've said it before. So pausing is listening to a podcast. Pausing is going to chat with a friend. Pause is going for a walk. Pause is reading a book. Pause is staring at the wall and dribbling. Pause is something. And in your pauses, you have to do some form of re-energizing and reflection. So it's always the things beginning with the R word, Rod. So it's brilliant that it's Russell that's on with Rod, and he's Rod Richard talking about resilience and reflected. It's just the R word all over the place. And in your pauses, you ask yourself two questions, which is, what have I been doing behaviorally recently that's been serving me well? Mm-hmm. And what have I been doing behaviorally recently that hasn't been serving me well? And how do I do more of the behaviors that are serving me well? So the resilient individual gets into the habit of pausing and re-energizing and reflecting. And as a consequence, there is a likelihood that they will rarely ever be on overwhelm on the hamster wheel.
That doesn't that take a good amount of like self-awareness or emotional intelligence? Because I'm just thinking about, okay, if I'm juggling these things, right? And you're saying to pause. If I stop moving, something's gonna like go wrong, right? So how do I if I pause now, things are gonna crash to the ground. But what you're saying is go ahead.
Yeah. No, sorry. Yeah. So the risk is it's you personally, Rod, that's going to crash to the ground. So we're trying to avoid that. So the things around you, so you could be juggling. So it's which would you prefer? Mindful of one of them when there was a sharp knife, so you're going to jump out the way. But, which would you prefer? You're juggling things that all those things fall around you, and you're still standing still and you're chatting to a mate. Or would you prefer that you're collapsed on the floor?
Either way, they're going to fall, right?
Either way, they're going to fall.
Okay.
So, and this is the challenge when people are in overwhelm. They are on this verge of coping to surviving, cliff edge, hanging on by your fingernails. and we want to just go, look, just come over here and let's just get you into a slightly better bit of coping, and then we'll get you into an even better bit of coping, and then even better, and actually, okay, we're going to slowly get you into thrive.
Okay. All right. Well, fellas, you heard it. You gotta take a pause. Well, hopefully, right, you're listening to this podcast. This might be your pause. This might be confirming for you that this is something that you need to do, or confirming that there is maybe more that you could be doing outside of listening to a podcast, and really connecting with, the things that you need to, that give you energy, that give you life, that I guess fill your cup. This is something my wife says all the time. You can't pour from an empty cup. Like you got to be able to, you got to fill your cup up in order to pour into other people. And I think a lot of times we end up like this, right? It's an empty cup. Like I drank it all, and I'm thirsty,
so when you are, this is it.
it.
So when you are making the decision and the choice to engage with your own personal resilience wheel going forward, you will be building and not building. You will be filling your resilience reservoir.
Okay.
And so, you don't spring a leak, essentially, when you're engaging with your resilience, or you plug your leaks, essentially.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's hard for a lot of fathers specifically to wrap their heads around, because the idea out there in society is that you sacrifice yourself for them. Like, I mean, in some literal senses, right? Like I would jump in front of a bullet for my family, right? And that's a situation where I would sacrifice for them. But like, I can't, and I'm saying this, I can't, like you said, allow myself to crash and still expect to be able to give to them, right? Because if I'm not taking care of me, I can't take care of them the way that they need, or I feel like they need to be taken care of.
So, it's just sprung into my head. So, have you heard the word self-full before, Rod?
Self-full?
Yeah.
No.
So what's the difference between selfish, self-full, and selfless? Not a test. It's just like
no. I would say selfish is probably more akin to greed. Like you're getting things for yourself at the expense of other people. Selfless is you're giving to others without taking anything on for yourself. Like if we got a plate of food, I give you everything, and maybe you give me something back, but I don't care if you do. Self-full, I don't know. You just dropped that on me. So
so self-full. So the definition of self-full is that I look after myself. Yeah. Resilience wheel, engage with it in order that I can be the best version of myself for others. So to being self-full is never selfish.
Okay. I like that. So self-full, I got to add that to my vocabulary.
So my invitation is like self-full. So you're there as, as fathers of like, we've got this belief that I'm supposed to do all of these things, sacrifice myself. Well, we're all the way back to pouring from an empty cup or resilience reservoir. If you're always giving to others, at some stage you're going to fall over. And how are you, being this person that you want to be because you've fallen over?
Yeah, it's interesting. This has been a kind of a hot topic of conversation on my social media. I posted, it was an old post from Twitter before it became X, and it was a lady, and her prompt was, how do men deal with all the things they deal with and never cry or never get emotional? And one of the replies was, we bottle it all up inside until we end up dying of a heart attack at 40 or something like that.
This is it.
And the comment section of that is a mix of, that's exactly right, or I'm near my 40s, like somebody's agreeing with it in that way, like it resonates with them, or that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to grin and bear it. And whenever we end, but we're supposed to take it all in and keep it inside. We're the vault, right?
Yeah. And
we just hold on to things and lock it down. And then there's another mix of people like, stop crying about it. Stop.
So, absolutely. So in this space, so from a leadership point of view, but this is also from a parenting point of view. So one of the, few things that leaders need to do is to show some vulnerability. Now, that doesn't mean you've literally got to stand up in front of your team and bawl your eyes out. It doesn't mean that. Vulnerability can be all sorts of different things. But the fabulous resilience role modeling from a human point of view, fatherhood, parent point of view, leadership point of view, is to utilize your emotional intelligence to just chat about your recent experiences and how you have managed to find ways to work through them. Okay. So as if you're a, father, parent, and, child comes to you and, I'm struggling with this or this isn't working. That's exact moment is for you to take an experience from your life and share it. To go, I think it sounds a bit similar to I remember when I was growing up, I was struggling with, and at the time I felt like this and I was thinking this about myself. And then I went and talked to somebody else. And actually, as a result of that, I realized that, what I was believing about myself wasn't true. So literally, as a leader, it's fantastic. If you're a leader of a team and then like the business has said, we're going to do all these big, massive changes. And there as the leader, you're going, oh, God, no. How am I going to deal with it? How am I going to tell my team? You need to just work that through. And then part of really great communication somewhere in the team is to go, so when I first heard this message that we were going to go through this big transformational program, my gut reaction was, and then how I dealt with it was. That is fantastic resilience role modeling, and it is just has brilliant benefits. So it's just about how comfortable people are sharing their experiences about the challenges that they had and just how they dealt with them.
Yeah, but see, now you're talking about me dealing with stuff, right? Like I usually just bottle it up and push it away and I just keep moving forward. So now, if I've done that and I've got a history of doing that, I don't really have a lot of like stories to connect to. Like, hey, my connection to you is, hey, life sucks. You just got to keep going.
Well, this is it. So I suppose, what have you been doing behaviorally recently, Rod, that's been serving you well and as sucking it up? How well has that served you? How's your ulcers right now?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I hear from guys a lot is like, the unfortunate thing is that like, there's been like this like other end of the spectrum, like stoicism to an extreme, like to the max. Like stoicism isn't the fact that you don't have emotions at all, or like you don't feel the things that humans feel. You have resilience. You have the ability to feel those things, find solutions, and then continue to move forward. I think we have taken that and bastardized it, for a lack of a better word, and gone, well, that's emotion. Like we don't connect to emotion, right? We don't get I think what it is we don't get emotional, and we have taken that and gone, well, we don't have emotions. If you don't have emotions, you won't get emotional, right? Or being emotional isn't manly, or it isn't masculine. And so
we're having emotions all the time, though, Rod. It's just literally, there's been hundreds of emotions that we've had in this conversation, and people that are listening. So we have been emotional and haven't been any tears. And
exactly.
That wasn't too frightening for anybody, was it? Has everybody been all right with it?
Yeah. I think that might be it, though. Is that we're afraid to some degree that vulnerability will be taken as weakness, or someone will use our vulnerability against us, and that is compounded with the fact that we are not working through or solving our own problems. We're just either running from them or pretending they didn't happen, like stuffing them down and moving on.
Absolutely.
So there is a level of work that you have to do as a leader in order to better lead, right? To be more resilient, as you're saying, because if I've never gone through it and found a solution to solve it, then as your leader, I can't support you in this situation.
No, you can't. I've just had a thought in my head. So it's a positive challenge to everyone that's listening. So if fathers, parents are doing this now, great. But I just encourage you over the coming weeks that, fingers crossed, your children will ask you, how was your day? Or how are you, Dad? Yeah. But if it's a work thing, how was your day? I would start to share a little bit of some of the challenges that you had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just talk very simplistically about the challenges and two things you did to overcome them. That's my challenge. to
Man,
everybody that's listening now and see how it goes.
you're talking about
Let me
having
know.
like level 3, level 4 conversation. Most of us want level 1. Like, how was your day? It was good. Period. Exclamation point. Like, we don't want to. We like to answer, to follow it up with a question will get us to level 2. But now you're talking about giving up like our feelings and how, like, the real things that happen. Oh man.
Well, it's what a resilient individual does, Rod. You know, if you want it, you've got to do some work on it, you know.
Come on, you're asking too much. I just want to be on the surface, right? Just dip my toe in, the water's fine. All right, cool. I don't need to feel the bottom of the
I
pool.
know.
I just want to
I
get on
know.
top. No, I agree with you. I think it's something that, obviously, right? I think it's something that's extremely important. Whether it's leading your family or leading your team at work, or just leading your friends or your group of people that you surround yourself with, whatever it is, even as leading yourself, right?
Yes.
Like guiding yourself in the things that you do on a daily basis or the things that you don't do. I think these things are extremely important just to you as an individual. And I think they build a foundation for whatever additional title you put on top of that.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And you said it in there. I think you sort of said springing forward learning somewhere in there, Rod.
Yeah,
You
yeah, it
almost,
was in there.
I think you might have said it. Yes.
Yeah. Definitely have to spring forward while you learn, and not assume that you're gonna fall back on it, or you know what I mean. Like I think that happens a lot too, and obviously you would agree is that we something happens and we just fall back on what we've done in the past, right? We don't find a way to be different and learn. Okay, in this situation, I can do this. But I think the conversation's been going really well, man. I think I even though I've been leaning into leadership and trying to understand how to be a better leader for my family. I'm hearing things that you're saying and like, okay, I got to look at this thing a little bit differently. There's some things that I've got to work on because, as I mentioned, the last few months I've felt overwhelmed in a way that I haven't felt in a very long time. And so you saying leaning into some of the things that are my strong points, right? Like I can honestly say I'm not doing that, right? I'm leaning into the things that are my weaknesses a little bit more. And that's just more draining, right? Because I suck at that and it just makes it worse. So I know that I'm learning a lot from this conversation, and I hope that the guys are too.
I'm glad that it's like just resonating in so many different ways. That is my intention, essentially, that we don't just think about this in one particular way.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. I obviously we're talking about leaders, and fathers are leaders. If you could, I don't know, maybe a couple of sentences, maybe describe or give us an idea of what fatherhood or leadership means to you.
Yeah. So I think fatherhood and the leadership is about your value system. So from a fatherhood point of view, have conversations within the family about actually what are our family values? What is it that is important and is relevant to us? And as a consequence of that, let's talk about, our purpose and who we are. I know I've mentioned purpose an awful lot, but if a family unit has got some grounding about some consistencies of some behaviors, that is just going to be really useful because that's what you benchmark things against, essentially. So fatherhood for me is about actually really understanding what your values are and what your intent around being a father is.
I like that. There's something that we did a couple of years ago is we got together and kind of looked at some attributes and values. My wife and I did, and then I brought my wife in and she added to it. And then after we kind of got some things that we liked, we brought our kids in and had them pick a couple. And we created, we went on Canva and created a canvas, and it's actually out in our entryway of our house. It's our family mission statement, and it has all of the values and how they apply to us. And it's something as a reminder of who this family is and how we show up for each other and for the world. So I do think that's really, really important. Really important. Before we go,
Yeah, that's really
we
good. It's really good. And yeah, and you need to use it as a feedback loop as well. You need to
yeah.
revisit it and sort of, so when was the last time you revisited it, essentially?
Yeah, yeah, it's necessary because you lose track of it. You lose sight of it, right? Like you put a lot of work into figuring out what those things are, but then life starts happening, and you lose your connection to it. I got one more question for you before we go. Um, if you had a message, and I'm sure you do, but if you had a message that you want to give all fathers, we are lucky enough to get them all listening and they're all on right now. What would that message be?
Yeah, message for all fathers at spring forward with learning. That's the message. That's it.
I, I love it. I love it. Way to stick to it, right? Stick to it. That is it. Um, Lean into it, spring forward and learning, or spring forward with learning. I think, like I said, I gained a whole lot from this episode. Things that I'm going to take right away and start applying or looking at or being a little more self-reflective of. Obviously, I hope the guys are doing that as well. If guys are wanting to reach out to you or get in touch with you, outside of this episode, what is the best way for them to do that?
Just go to my website. So it's www.theresiliencecoach.co.uk. And then there's a little pop-up form on there that they can just fill in, send me the details. That's it. I'm all over LinkedIn and social media as The Resilience Coach. So that's the best way to get hold of us.
Awesome. Hey, fellas, if that was too difficult for you and it was super straightforward, so I hope it wasn't. But it'll be in the show notes and the guest profile. We'll have all that information there. I know sometimes we're driving or we're working out while we're listening to a podcast, and so we're not really grasping. But I'll make it easy for you. I'll put it all in there so you guys know what it is. Make sure you guys reach out to Russell. I think if you're a leader, this is something that you definitely need to be working on, building your resilience, because it's tough. It's tough. It's not an easy job to be the leader of anything. And if you can solidify your leadership with the support that Russell has and the knowledge that Russell has, you'll definitely be doing yourself a favor.
Thank you. Very kind words.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. I appreciate you taking the time to join us, to share your expertise. And I'm not just saying this because it's, a podcast and you're on it. I really, like I said, I really did learn some things that I'm going to use, and some things that I need to connect with and work on and continue to build, especially in this season of overwhelm that I've been experiencing and working through. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm sure the guys do as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you too.
All right. Now you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon. All right. You just tuned into another episode of the Fit Fatherhood Podcast. And I sincerely hope that you walk away from this episode with something that you can use in your fatherhood journey. If you aren't already, please make sure you go like, subscribe, share the podcast. There's fathers out there who need this information just like you did. Make sure that they get it. Remember, if our goal is to improve the world, we're trying to do that one father at a time, one household at a time, one community at a time. And the only way we can do that is if we share the message with other brothers. All right. So see you guys next time.